All right, sorry for the delay. Had to upgrade Ecamm Live, of course. Always something right before you get started. Anyway, today, as I noted, I want to first check my audio levels. Let's do that, shall we? All right, cool. Everybody let me know you can see me, hear me okay. Should be good there. Always like to double check after a couple snafus. So today we're going to add a CLI task. I thought of one the other day when I was kind of looking at the Laravel 11 shift. I don't use model observers a whole lot in my application. I find them to be kind of abstract, and they're like this buried feature inside of a code base. Events in general are always kind of like that to me. Not to say I don't use events in general, but particularly observers I find to be, something rather hidden. And I always end up kind of, when an application uses them, I'll always end up being like, where is this code running? And it's in an observer. So I think the easiest way to find it is, of course, just see that an app has like an observers folder or something like that. So then you can kind of just have that in the back of your mind. So they're a great little feature. It's just not one I particularly use. So I haven't really thought of this before until someone sent in a support email about the Laravel 11 shift saying, hey, my observers needed to be re-registered or whatever. And I thought there would be a cool task to kind of not only re-register them, but modernize them with this new observed by attribute. So let's kind of like last time, let's shell out kind of a new task. I won't get into all the nitty gritty of it necessarily, but let's kind of make a new task for the Shift CLI and get it kind of hooked up and running. And again, I won't necessarily get into like the nuance of testing it and setting up all the fixtures because I think that's pretty slow. So we have this like environment config here, and honestly, I haven't worked in this code base in several months here. Let's actually find out. Yeah, several months. Look at that, almost a year. So it'll be fun kind of going through this code again. But I do know it's written very similar to the way the Shift code base is written. The CLI has some open source tasks, and then it has this premium set of tasks which you can get a license for. There's several here, but there's more free ones than paid ones. But I do think this will be kind of a paid one just because I don't think everybody necessarily uses it. I feel like it's one of those like extra level kind of premium steps that you can do. And it's not much to do it manually, but it adds to this kind of set of premium tasks which people may want to use. So let's kind of look at the anatomy of this by copying it and making a new observed by, I think, is the attribute. I can always rename this later. But let's go ahead and bring this here. Don't ask me again. I will take care of Git. I don't need PHP Storm to do it. Okay, so same thing here. Observed by attribute. And what this will do is refactory calls or model observe, man, I can't type today, calls to use class attribute. All right, cool. Let me close the chat so I get a little more screen real estate here. To use PHP class attribute. And do I put periods on these things? No, I do not. Okay, cool. I was just kind of looking at the syntax there. Okay, so what happens is, just like a command inside of Laravel, you have this name, you have this description, this is going to show up in the CLI, and then you kind of have all this other stuff here. So we don't need these core environment variables. I don't think we're going to need settings. And here's what we're going to do. In perform, much like the handle of a command inside of Laravel, we're going to go and look to see if any files contain this thing. And I think in this case, the easiest thing to do would be something like observe, right? Because this is the traditional syntax for setting up a model observer. Now you might have other things in your code called model observe, so we're going to do like a second level pass. But typically what happens here is I just like to find all of the files. I cast a wide net and I kind of figure out if there are any at all. So if there aren't any, then we'll just go ahead and return 0, meaning nothing happened, but it was successful. It just didn't find anything. Otherwise, we will loop over these and start to do some stuff. So I think what we'll do is we probably don't want to do, all these are PHP files, by the way, so I'm already safe there. So we know that in the code somewhere it has : observe, opening parenthesis. So now we can go in, get the file contents, we're going to parse those out and set those up to be the things that we want. So I think go ahead and leave this, because every structure of the tasks are the same. I kind of loop over the files that I found, and then I give it a second level actual like abstract syntax tree parsing to make sure it contains the code that we want. So I think building the replacement, we won't really do build replacement here. In fact, we'll kind of just do like a removal of the code. So we could go ahead and say like, it is substring replace. Our replacement is actually just empty in this case, but we would need to kind of rack up the model names, or well, we need to do some stuff here. Let's write some pseudocode so I don't have to like think it all in my head. So we've got a little to-do action here. We need to see if model is in application. You could be observing stuff for a model that's not yours, meaning that we wouldn't be able to go in and put on this attribute to that class. So we need to make sure that the model's in the application, we're able to find it. So more specifically, able to find model in application. All right, we can do that. And so long as we're able to do that, then we can blank it out. We also then at that point need to track model to add attribute, because that's not necessarily going to happen all right here. So if those two conditions are true, or at least we're able to find the model, then we know we can blank this out and add the attribute to that class, which is going to take a little bit of parsing as well. So let's get into that parsing, I think. Again, I'm not going to write this whole thing on the stream, but I think we could at least kind of take a look at this parsing. Okay, so we're definitely going to use this finder parse. So I don't know why this method probably doesn't make sense for us. So let's go back, and we're not going to need to parse blade. This, again, we copied this from other stuff. So let's just kind of clean this class up real quick, because I don't think we need all these things. Okay, and finder is fine. We can actually get a little fancier there, I think. Let's go back up here, and it'll really be more like this. Contents. There we go. Cool. So we'll just we'll straight finder that. I think we could just do this now. That's a fun little refactor. Always like that refactor. All right, and instead we're going to have model observe finder. All right, let's make this, and let's go talk about this for a little bit. So this is where kind of that abstract syntax tree parsing happens. Let's just see if there's one that's kind of close to maybe what we might use. View compact finder. It's kind of like a static call. So this route view closure is actually probably the most closely related, I think. Just thinking of the syntax, because when you do route : view, you've got this static call to a method, and then it's going to have an argument. So I think this is pretty close to what we want, because we're going to need to inspect kind of both sides of that. So let's just use this as a base, and we'll change this back to model observe finder. And we need to make sure that it's an instance. It's definitely going to be an instance of a static call. So we have to think about this code. Our code looks something like model observe, and then you pass in, the observer, class is kind of typically what this looks like. And this is probably in your, your event service provider, or in modern Laravel 11 applications, this might be in your app service provider. But the point here is that you have this kind of setup or this kind of syntax. So this is what we want. So we always are going to have a static call, I would think, on this side. If we don't, then you're doing some syntax that isn't currently supported. So if it's not a static call, then we know we can just return from our search. We're not going to keep traversing the nodes. And then we can go a little deeper here, and we want to make sure that the method name is going to be observe. So this node gives us an identifier and a name. And what that means is just kind of identifier and then the name. So this lowercase name needs to be, in this case, observe, right? So I don't think we're going to use the method name anymore, so we probably don't need this temporary variable. And in fact, knowing a little bit more about the abstract syntax tree, I think you can just say to lower string. Yeah, there we go. We don't even need to do all that ourselves. Okay, so we get the node's name, meaning the method name that's called, and lowercase string it. And if it, just in case, again, it's PHP, so someone could technically write observe there. I don't know why you would ever do that, but you can. So if the lowercase strings normalize is not observe, again, bail out of the search. And then arguments. I'm wondering if, I don't think in Laravel you can pass this multiple observers. I don't think so. I'd have to check that. So basically, if not is set argument 1, then we would want to return false, because again, it's some kind of syntax that's unexpected, right? In fact, if the count of the args is not equal to 1, if it doesn't have one argument, then see you later. Let's bail out of the search again. And then finally, we kind of, what do we want to do here? We need to determine, we're not really necessarily concerned right now that it's a model per se. We would just need to make sure that the left side is a reference to a class. So at this time, we wouldn't want to support something like this. We wouldn't be able to figure out what model is. So we just need to make sure that the other side of this is a node name effectively. So we can basically say if node identifier, or what is that called? Node class, sorry. If node class is not equal to name, I think we call it here, or sorry, not instance of. So if node class is not an instance of name, then we would return false. And I think at this point we could kind of safely return true, probably. Again, there might be more nuance to this when we test, and I think let's go ahead and move this higher up because it's a simpler call. So if it's not a static expression, bail out. If it's not a reference to a class name, then bail out. If the name of the method call is not observe, bail out. And if it isn't passed exactly one argument, then bail out. We probably need to do something like ensure argument is string or class reference, right? We would just need to make sure that they're not passing in something dynamic somehow, like, observer. Because if they were, again, we're not in a place where we can kind of graph your whole code out and figure out where that is. So that's just a little to-do. I don't think we need view closure here right now. Here's some ability to kind of check some of this other stuff, but again, I'll probably just put that in line. We're not going to need this route object thing because we don't go that deep. We don't need the root object searching because again, we're expecting it to be a very, very simple expression. Get node as string. I don't think we need that either. So here's process. Process, we basically find the line that it's on, the offset that it's on the line, and then we would want to find, in this case, what we believe to be the model and the observer. And so this is get node as string. I think we killed that on accident. So let's go back and get that from our route view closure finder. So we have get node as string. Oh, we're just pretty printing it. Do we need to pretty print it? We shouldn't really need to pretty print this thing. We already kind of know what it is. I think we could just be a little fancier here. So we could probably just say instance, it's a static expression, so instance class, and again, we know that class is an expression or a name. At this point, we know that it has to be a name. So if we click down into that, we have all these parts. I think there's a way to just say toString, maybe, if I remember right. Yeah, toString. Implode the parts based on the slash. Oh, is there a way? I think we can pull out the qualified names. I kind of forgot. I'll have to look into this in another class. But we know that this is a name at this point, which would mean that we could at least do something like, you know, lower string. We don't necessarily want to do that. I think we can pull this part out, and then this one is where it's maybe a little more interesting. Again, if it's, we'll extract this in a method. So extract argument, wow, can't spell today. Argument, all right, and then we'll pass this instance args 0, because we know again that it's only one arg at this point. And here we need, so to do, this is where we know again that we've filtered it either to a string or class reference. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. Got a few peeps. Let's see here. Got some questions. Hey Samuel, how's it going? Zir, interesting stream. I usually look at them after. Okay, cool. Is there any plan to make package shifts Statamic v4 to v5? No, I think, I mean, my understanding, I don't use it directly, but my understanding of Statamic is that, you know, it is a Laravel application. Of course, they have probably their own changes within their software, but it's still a Laravel application, so you would be able to use Laravel Shift to kind of do at least the main structure of the application changes could be automated. But no, there's no discussions right now to kind of have that. You know, they have a pretty large team, and what I've found is that a lot of these kind of larger community packages inside the Laravel ecosystem, they're starting to kind of make their own upgrade paths internally, which I think is pretty cool. You know, I don't have the time to do every single thing out there. You know, people have asked for Nova and Livewire and you know, even Pest, you know, stuff like that over the years, and I've never really done those because honestly I don't use them a whole lot myself, so I haven't had a need to kind of scratch my own itch there. But I'll also again, to the point, what I've found is that Pest, you know, they now have Drift. It's kind of an internal thing where you can take your PHP unit stuff and go over. Shift still has a converter, but it's just because I built it before they built that. But Livewire has a little bit of an upgrade tool, I think, that Philo built for V3. So, you know, who knows? Maybe Statamic might do that for V5 or V6 or something. So, but anyway, I don't typically do them myself just because, I pretty much don't have the time, and then beyond that, you know, I don't immediately have the expertise on all those different pieces of software. So, okay, extract argument. What we have here is probably a mixed value. It's really a node is what we have, and this is ultimately going to return a string either way. So basically, if it's a string, we'll just return the string directly. Otherwise, we're going to parse out that class reference, which I don't remember how to do off the top of my head. So let's go see if there's another method I want to see if there's another method that might mess around with this. I know I've got some stuff in Shift that'll kind of get like the resolved name. I think there might, let's see if there's like resolved, I think is the name. It's going really slow. Here we go. Class has resolved name. Here we go. This kind of uses it. Let's look at this for just a second, and then I'll go back to the task code and we'll kind of see what's going on. So here's kind of where I mess around with something like that. If the class has the resolved name, then go ahead and kind of toString and return that. Otherwise, just return the string class name itself. So that's probably what we want to do. So this one, whoops, wrong finder. Let's go back to this. So that kind of goes here, and basically what we'll say is instance class, we'll do this, and we'll say has attribute. Oh my goodness. You know what, let's type in this. We can static method. Oh, you can't type in it there. Whoops. Let's just put this in place for a second. Var at var static method, static call. Is that right? Yeah. Static call instance. There we go. Yeah, static call. Okay. So let's just type that for a second so we can get to where we want to go. Let's take off this part, of course. And then class, so if it has the attribute resolve name, then I want to use that. And resolve name helps because it kind of figures out, even though you used this shorthand syntax here, it'll kind of go up to the imports or whatever and figure out what its actual name of that class is. So that's very, very helpful in kind of the parsing of the syntax tree. So if it has that attribute, let's go ahead and use it. Otherwise, we'll just get the toString of the class because we're assuming that it's, again, going to be, I wonder what the difference between toString and toCodeString is. It just calls toString. Okay, never mind. Okay, so I think model is good. Observer is the final piece, but again, I'm not going to muddle around with this. We get the idea, so we'll just say for now return blank because we know that it would explode. Let's go back to this and just kind of finish up the stream and kind of let you know where I'm going. I like to keep these streams about 20 minutes nowadays. So if we go back, let's kind of review what's left. So we've figured out anywhere in the code that calls observe. We're going to now take like a second pass at that file. We're going to parse it with the syntax tree. This is going to give us higher fidelity that these calls are what we expect them to be. Now again, it's still a little bit dumb because it's just looking for static calls to an observe method with a single argument. That might not be exactly Laravel's model observer registration calls. They could still be something else that just looks like that code. So that's where we're going to start this kind of final pass to say, hey, is that first class argument a actual model? We can go look to find the path. We can turn that class to a path. We can new up one of those and do some reflection to make sure that it's an instance of Laravel's model. So are we able to find a model and application? That's a little bit of a robust test, right? There's more things going on. We're finding the path. We're newing that up. We're doing some reflection. We're going to make sure that that's an actual model in your application. And then, if so, we'll replace that line, the offset that we found. And then finally, kind of the next pass is, add attribute to, or well, we would basically add attribute to model class. So it doesn't matter the order here. As soon as we do that, this is kind of like if not continue, right? So that's what's left to do. Basically, we'll take the information that we have back and we'll give it that final fidelity check to say, okay, is this something we understand and is this something we could go add the attribute to reliably? And if we can, then we'll do it. If not, then we leave the observe call alone and they can just clean that up by hand. It's going to take a human review, right? Because maybe they're doing some interesting syntax or something, again, that the parser has deemed not something it can handle. So that's pretty much it. There wouldn't be too much else in here. Again, all the rest of this code kind of goes away. We end up returning 0. There's no need to build the replacement or any of this stuff. And of course, we leave the Finder alone. So that's pretty good. I think all this extends Finder. No, it's its own thing. So we can't really return a type there, unfortunately. So yeah, a pretty straightforward task. Again, not a lot of code, 60 lines. I think even when I finish this, it'll probably end up only being about 100 lines. I have other tasks where I think we do stuff with models. Maybe in the open source one, I know that we do have some model ordering. So I can go steal some code from that to start plugging this in, and then I'll backfill a test to make sure it actually behaves the way that I want. So there you have it. There's a new task added to the Shift CLI. I'll finish this up and maybe announce it on Twitter in a couple days or early next week. And you can check it out if you're using the premium tasks. If you're not using the Shift CLI, of course, again, it has a lot of free tasks. So check that out and see if you like it. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining. See you next week.